Assalamu alaikum guys, I pray you're all well, and I start this video off by sharing a few clips from the Wildlife Conservation Park in Birmingham. Thankfully the weather's looking up, and with the easing of lockdown restrictions we're now able to head out to quite a few more locations than we have been as of late. Now how long it's going to last I really don't know, what with the rise of this new Delta variant and the other variants across the world, but all I can say guys is try your utmost to stay safe, and if you haven't caught COVID already and are perhaps vulnerable because of your age or health conditions, do consider taking that vaccine if you can, and Allah protect us from any ill effects that you may have. Ameen. Now onto the park. It's a lovely place guys, set near the city centre in Birmingham and right near the cricket stadium and Cannon Hill Park. It houses a whole range of exotic and interesting animals, and it's definitely somewhere to take the kids for a pleasant day out, and it doesn't cost the entirety of your day out budget, so there's still some left over for the ice cream and food and whatever have you. But for the four of us, meaning my wife and my kids, I believe it was somewhere in the ballpark of about 21 quid and then a couple of quid for parking, so all in all maybe about £25, and that's not too bad for what's on offer, and it does make for a nice day out. Anyway, I decide to cook some lovely curries for when we get back in, so stick around to check them out. So today we're cooking some lovely Alaskan salmon in a tangy Boona style sauce and some king prawns in a similar yet spicier sauce laced with some Mr. Naga chili pickle, which is going to add a lovely kick. It's also going to add a lovely kick to your morning bathroom routine, I might add. So we start off by prepping the salmon and prawns, and in the case of the salmon you're going to want to scrape away at the scales, especially if you want to attempt to keep the skin on. Now I find a metal scoring pad works wonders, and it makes light work of this. I'm not particularly bothered to be fair, but my wife does like the skin, especially from some of the more tropical fish choices that we have in Bangladesh, such as boal or roe. Or is it gwal or rui? It's actually kind of infuriating how in Bengali there are so many different ways of saying the same thing depending on which region and local dialect it is that you speak. Now let me know in the comments below whether you're a futki, hutki or shutki person, or whether you eat fulab or pulao. Another very Sileti Bengali trait is the use of the f phoneme instead of the p. Anyway, prawns on the other hand come in a variety of sizes, and there is a distinct difference in taste depending on where they were harvested, and by that I mean hot or cold water bred and also wild or farmed. As with most things though today, commercial efficiency has become a must, and because of how lucrative the prawn market is, it pays well for people in the trade to breed their own prawns and shrimp in dedicated fisheries, because it allows them to control their feeding and diet as well as size, because of course prawns are sold according to size and weight. Now you can see that I'm just peeling away the skin, and thankfully these were cut down the spine and deveined before being packaged. There are some though that have still got the poop tube attached, so be prepared to pull those away too. And actually the colour of the poop is indicative of these being the farmed sort, as typically freshwater wild prawns poop is a lot darker as the diet is more varied. Right, so I'll move on to preparing a tandoori marinade using a few simple ingredients. We've got a variety of spices including paprika, chilli, coriander, jeera, and also some vinegar, garlic paste, lemon juice and salt and oil. Check out the description box for full and accurate details. So typically I keep some patak's tandoori and Kashmiri paste on hand because it's kind of the cheat code for Indian restaurant style tandoori meats, but this will do just fine. So we're just going to coat our fish and prawns and give the marinade a good mix till they've all got to know each other, and set them aside whilst we prepare our veg. Now in Bengali cooking there's so many ingredients that really add to the depth of flavour, given our curries a very complex nature, but the trinity has got to be onions, tomato and coriander. Now I find we use these three ingredients in all our curry cooking escapades. So the rest is pretty self-explanatory, and whilst I do the prep I want to take a few minutes to talk about something that's been trending in the socials and just generally there's been a lot of hype about recently, and that is crypto. Now I want to preface this by mentioning that I am in no way an expert, and it is something I've only just started looking into myself, and I think the biggest question on anyone's mind is what exactly is it, and why in the world is one Bitcoin worth more than my annual income? Well, maybe that's a question on some of your minds anyway. So cryptocurrency is essentially money or another currency similar to sterling, dollars, rupees or taka. And I think the best explanation should start with breaking down exactly what currency is. So in the good old days when people would exchange valuable goods such as cows and sheep and fancy brass vases for something they wanted or needed. And whilst this worked, it wasn't the most efficient means of trade because it relied on a couple of things. Number one, of course, being that whether the other person actually wanted or needed what they had to offer. So society slowly moved on to associating value to precious minerals and metals such as gold, silver, rubies, and they began trading in these, and of course it proved to be more efficient. There were of course the obvious drawbacks such as security or lack of, so being looted whilst in transit was commonplace. So moving on from this, with the establishment of governments and regulations came banks and investment. This led to paper money, which is a product of the bank of that said country giving their word that the little bits of paper or plastic that we trade with today hold value equivalent to a country's financial strength in the global market. This again is all well and good until the economy of that country collapses and the money you have saved up in the bank becomes dissolved. For example, Greece. But ignoring that for a second, if we consider how we trade today, more often than not, we buy things online or through contactless means using a bank card or a credit card. Now this means that we're not really exchanging coins or paper money or even a brass budna. Our transactions are just entries on one spreadsheet whilst another spreadsheet is being amended. Now that I've got that introduction out of the way, I'm hoping we're now all on the same page. So crypto is essentially virtual money or a digital asset. So with fiat currency or your regular pounds, dollars, etc., each bank would keep a record of what it's storing in terms of your money. Crypto, on the other hand, is all stored on one great big record sheet called a ledger. So it's important to grasp why crypto seems to be the next big thing. So let's take a look at some of the advantages. Firstly, it's decentralized, which means it's not connected or controlled by any bank or currency of a country. Now, whilst there are some that are, such as the US Tether coin, most aren't, such as Bitcoin, Ethereum, Cardano, just to name a few. So you know how I mentioned all the transactions are saved on a single ledger? Well, as you can imagine, these records need to be kept up to date. So this is where mining comes in. Now, although there is essentially only one ledger per coin, there are multiple copies of this ledger and each transaction needs to be computed by inputting it into this ledger. So the way mining works is basically people using their computing power or computers to carry out these computations and update the ledger, and in return they're rewarded by being paid in an increment of their chosen crypto. Now this is usually Bitcoin. As it stands, there's more than 1 million people mining across the world, some with massive complexes with immense computing power. Just on a side note though, there are some ethical and moral considerations here, such as energy consumption and the health of the world, but that's a topic for another day. Back to the advantages. Because it's internet based, nowadays most places have access to the internet but might not necessarily have access to a traditional bank, and for many reasons such as living in a remote place. So crypto removes that barrier for them, making financial trading more accessible. The biggest benefit would have to be the fact that because of crypto and the nature in which it operates, we don't need to rely on banks anymore. So many of you may send money abroad to friends and family, and with crypto you don't really have to worry about it taking 3 days till they can get access to those funds. Along with that, exchange rates and interest rates aren't a thing, and transactional fees are very small for most types of crypto. Moving on to security though, cryptocurrencies are secured using cryptography, hence the name, and the way this works is called blockchain. You may have heard this term being chucked around and thought, what is it? Is it a kind of crypto? Well, you're not the only one. I thought much the same back when I was a crypto noob. It is in fact a way of recording transactional data, and very simply, each transaction is considered a block, which is connected to the previous and following transaction, hence the mention of chain. To make them connected, each block contains a specific data related to the previous and following block, which means that if someone wanted to meddle with a particular block, the previous and following blocks would throw up an error because they wouldn't match anymore. Therefore, meddling with one would require meddling with all the billions of records, as well as changing all the ledgers saved by millions of people all across the world. And the more time passes, the more secure crypto becomes, as more and more people start to use it. Immediately we can see the value in this compared to regular bank accounts where people's accounts are being hacked all the time. Now that we've touched on the advantages, including from a security aspect, I think it's time to move on to the most contentious point of all. Well, especially for Muslims, that is, and it is investment. So the way crypto investment works is you exchange your regular currency like pounds or dollars for the crypto of your choice, and you sit and wait for those particular cryptos to become so popular that they increase in value exponentially, and they're then able to sell that crypto back onto the market for a much more attractive value, giving them again pounds or dollars. So which coin should you invest in if you're looking to get in on the action? Well, it all seems a bit daunting at first. After all, there is like more than 4,000 coins, but it should come as a no-brainer, especially if you've set up a crypto wallet already, that the most popular one is of course Bitcoin, which is worth circa £25,000 or so, followed by Ethereum, Cardano and so on. There are also providers who give you a platform to trade on, such as Binance, Coinbase and Crypto.com, who also have their own proprietary coins. Now I know what you're thinking. What? I think in essence, crypto is a pretty secure means of safeguarding your monetary assets. It kind of helps that a lot of these wallet providers such as Crypto.com also have their own debit card provision, which is backed by Visa, which means you can pretty much use your crypto as you would regular money with some pretty decent perks. On the flip side, if you want to try and earn a pretty penny off it, I think putting religious inclinations aside, crypto is very volatile, so regular currency is by no means a steady and stable platform. Currency is always fluctuating based on a number of different variables, but not by so much. The issue with crypto is because of its infancy, its value is based on hype. And I can only imagine the very same thing went on when paper currency was first introduced, because how do you equate the value of paper against gold and other precious metals? So if you were to invest in crypto, the trends up until recently suggest steady growth of the market, which means the value of coin was increasing exponentially. And also hyperinflated, especially if it was hyped by particular social influencers, i.e. Elon Musk and the whole Bitcoin scenario. In the same way, the value can drop just as quick, again, Elon Musk and the whole Bitcoin scenario. The question is, should you invest? From a purely fact-based perspective, I think if you wanted to invest, you should take an educated decision. Do some research into each of the cryptos. Have a look at the market and see how it works. Look at progression, watch videos, and only invest that which you can afford to lose. The issue is, for example, if you bought Bitcoin today at 26k, expecting the value to rise to 40k and above, which is what it kind of peaked at, roughly earlier this year, you might not walk away from the venture better off, because it might continue to fall in value as it is at the moment, or it could go up. But effectively, if it does drop, it means you're worse off. That's not to say that by next year the market won't creep up again, but if you think you'll need the money anytime soon, say for a new car purchase or house purchase, or maybe even home improvements, then it's probably better not to invest so much. And I guess on that note, that's all I've got to say on the matter. There are going to be religious implications you might want to consider, especially from a Muslim's viewpoint of using money to make money. And I am by no means an alim or any kind of authority on the matter, so it's better to check with an imam that you trust and follow for specifics related to permissibility. Anyway guys, details of ingredients can be found in the description box below. If you liked the video, don't forget to like. If you loved it, please spread some love and subscribe and share with people you think may benefit from it. And on that note, until next time, Salaam.